Welcome everybody.
Morning.
Morning. On this wonderful, warmish, almost morning. It's June. It's supposed to be a lot warmer, isn't it? But,
So far,
we'll get there. We will get there. But first, we shall light the chalice. Turn it on. So today's theme is the Alchemy of Transformation. So we'll look at this theme through my own lens of experience, as well as from an interfaith perspective, as it is a large part of how people interact with the idea of faith and belief. So deep inside us, we have a whirlpool of thoughts, feelings and emotions which manifest in a physical form, which makes us who we are in any given moment. So we shall explore that in a deeper sense and what's actually happening through these different lenses. But first, let's come together and just land where we are by singing our first song, which is number 181. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. This is in the purple books. 181.
Thanks, Jim.
So I want to start by reading an article from the Zen Gateway website, which was written by Martin Goodson. So the contrasted effects of a calculating versus a non-grasping attitude are demonstrated in Eugen Herrigel's book, Zen is the art of archery. Herigo went to Japan in the 1920s to practice Zen Buddhism. However, he was advised that he was unfamiliar with the culture and language, and he would be better placed to accustom himself via one of the many ways aligned to the spiritual practice, so he opted to take up Kyodo, or archery. The first thing he discovered in the training hall or dojo was that there was no emphasis on hitting the target at all. So that was nice and easy. In fact, they moved the target to within 10 feet, making it difficult to miss. Instead, the emphasis was on cultivating good form. How to stand, to kneel and pick up the bow, how to notch the arrow, how to draw the bow at full stretch and stand there, concentrated. This is based on the understanding that this I, with all my thoughts of success and failure, simply gets in the way of good shooting. So through the practice of cultivating good form, it becomes possible for the body to develop the skill without such interference. However, the root of this one who feels, he is the hub and center of activity, and that nothing can go without me, goes very deep. The real test comes when the Kyoko student is told not to intentionally fire the arrow. So how do you hit the target? So this is an incredible problem for me, because I believe that for anything to be done successfully, I must be involved. But no, the teacher says just practice the form as instructed, and the form itself will do what is necessary. So the archer must stand with the bow at full stretch, forgetting the target. He waits, and he waits, and he waits, until full concentration of circumstance come together, and the arrow flies of itself. So the full emotional panoply of I want a result arises, and our patience is tested, which is the sole purpose of this whole scenario, to wear away this one who deliberates so much. So it's an interesting concept. You know, it's not the target, it's not the goal of getting a bullseye or hitting it dead on. It's the act of doing it and doing it well. So it was an inner transformation that had to happen before the external ability of being able to let that arrow go and hit the target. That became secondary to the act of going internally. So there's a bit of a transformation there. So this, you can gather, is a bit what I'm alluding to here. So for me, this is about as similar to like a lot of sports, or if you think back to when you was younger, or maybe you're active in something particular these days, where you, whatever it is you're doing, for me, I can think back to when I played football or rugby, and you move with the ball, and there's a moment where you're so in tune with what you're doing, you're not actually thinking, you know, what's my next move? What am I away to do? The body takes over instinctively, and so the movement is secondary to the mind, is so connected to what you're doing, and the skill comes about all of itself. So a bit like waiting to let go of that arrow, you're just in the moment. So I sometimes think about, stay on the theme of sport, somebody who plays darts, for instance. If you never knew anything about darts and you saw somebody for the very first time hold the dart in his hand or her hand and let it go, think of all the thousands of permutations and movements that has to go through. And if he was a betting man, he'd be probably 10,000 to 1 that that dart would ever hit the target to wherever it needed on the board. But you know, through, even though the balance of the dart in the hand can be just slightly off, the step as they approach might be slightly different. The way they stand, the way they hold the arm back and they let their dart go. There's so many things that could get in the way of that, and yet it works. It's about being in the moment, being connected to whatever it is you're doing. So there's something going on inside to get that balance, to get that purposeful connection before you become in tune with the act of doing. So it's so I do this with a what's called a bow staff. I might have mentioned this before. And when you're in tune, that's great. Everything flows, it moves. When I'm not in tune, it doesn't flow so good, and I end up hitting myself. And, you know, it's instant feedback. You know, whether I'm in connection or not. But it's you know, I love the way you have that connection with something external to yourself. I'm going to have to just talk my way through this. So, a good teacher, Eckhart Tolle, I don't know if you followed any of his things, but he talks about, here it says facing adversity, but he talks specifically about the alchemy of transformation. So I thought it rather apt for today, with that being our theme. So, what he talks about is, you know, because alchemists always want to turn lead into gold. It is the ultimate of getting rich, I suppose. And of course, many alchemists over centuries have tried this. But at the end of the day, it is the alchemy comes in as an internal thing. And so we have these way of being in which it becomes like a melting pot. The same way you would create a metal or precious metal, you have different elements that creates a physical characteristics that makes lead or gold, and makes it that element. The same internally, we have different emotions which makes us who we are. So we may have love, patience, understanding. We may feel compassion, and these make us into, as you can imagine, a person who we probably all want to be. But also, that melting pot can have many things, because our life brings many things to us in our daily activities and our connections. So you might have fear. You might have anxiety, you might have negative emotions, which would make you into a totally different kind of person. But for most of us, we have a mixture of all these things. So therein lies the alchemy of who we really are. And what we put into that melting pot becomes who we want to be in any given moment. And that's always in a form, in a transformational form. And it will manifest in different ways. Just like, again, I use this quite a lot, when somebody comes into the room, you have a sense, a feeling of if they're in a good mood or in a bad mood. And when they're in a good mood, that's great, and you can connect with that, and everything's fine. But when they come with a scowl and you got that energy coming off you, you know when they're in a bad mood, and you think, okay, I'll just let them just calm down a little bit before I speak to them. So we pick this up, and this is all that's going on in us all the time. So this is the inner alchemy of our transformations. So while we think about that, we'll go into our next song, which is number 219, the Green Books. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. Oops, sorry.
Oops.
That's me hitting too many buttons.
That's struggling.
So the alchemy of transformation has always been more than turning lead into gold. Across cultures, it becomes a metaphor for turning suffering into wisdom, ignorance into insight, fragmentation into wholeness, and potential into reality. So what is alchemy? As you may have seen, if I'd have got the video going, historically, alchemists sought to transform base metals into gold. Yet many traditions understood this process symbolically. The real transformation was always a transformation of the person. So the question becomes, what if the gold we seek is not something we possess, but something we become? So the first path I want to really touch on here is Taoism. So cultivating life energy is one of the things that they're doing, and Taoist ways of connecting. So Qigong emerges from the Taoist understanding that life is animated by Qi energy, the vital energy flows through all things. In Taoist internal alchemy, the practitioner seeks not external goal, but refinement of body, mind, and spirit. So these things we try to bring together through Qigong, Tai Chi, and these slow movements. I like that because it's not strenuous, easy to do, and feels calming and soothing. So this is my practice in the morning. I get up and do some Qigong, and there's different Qigong for different ailments or different the way you're feeling, all particular to balancing the yin and the yang that's within life and within ourselves, and harmonizing with nature. So Tai Chi, for instance, and well, all forms are based on nature in some level or form. But Tai Chi was based when a Taoist monk who was adept in martial arts looked at a snake and they call it a crane, as a bird of some kind, and they interplay the dance between them as they faced each other. And he took some of that movement and put it into a Tai Chi form. And so while you're doing this, you're refining emotional energy. So with the way you breathe, the way you move, you're creating an inner balance. And by doing that, you create where you might have had all these different fear, anxiety going on. You balance that by a level-headed calmness. And that's why I like the idea of Qigong and Tai Chi. And also it cultivates vitality. The idea is it helps you live longer. And we'll yet to see how that pans out, but I'm practicing that anyway. So how regular practice alters my breathing, because a big part of that is how you breathe. And so apparently there's 3 ways of breathing. So you have the lower belly breathing. I don't know if anybody's ever experienced this. So you breathe and you breathe in and the belly extends. You breathe out and the belly recedes. So this, the reason for this is that's where the energy point of the body is. So you're bringing energy in. But also at the same time you're massaging the inner organs because the belly's going in and out. So that's one method, and then there's the reverse breathing, they call it, which is probably the standard for most people, is the breathe through the chest. That's upper body breathing. You breathe in, chest goes out, and you breathe out, it goes in. But in Taoist techniques, that's called reverse breathing. So we'd use that, of course, for the lungs and for other parts of the body. So the upper part. And then there's the third way of breathing, which is a way so you would hardly even know that you're breathing in and out. You breathe in and out through the nose, and things just move naturally, whichever way you're breathing, just whatever the body feels comfortable with. So that's the three ways of breathing that the Taoist technique uses, and it strengthens different parts of the body. And in that way, it increases attention to the different parts of the body, and so it's all about well-being and healthiness. So it's all on the physical sense. But of course, it all starts internally, looking at the different organs, trying to bring that energy as you breathe in to them particular organs, and then it manifests in health and well-being physically. And in this movement, it brings stillness as well as calm, and that in itself brings a transformation. The state of the mind when you are present and focused brings that transformation physically and mentally. And so when you are faced with life things such as stress at work, you've got these tools in which you can use, which I use on a regular basis. So a powerful image is that of water, another Taoist way of teaching. It uses water a lot. That's something I myself have an affinity with. I love water sports in many different ways. But water does not force transformation. It shapes mountains through persistence. So you think a mountain made of rock is very hard, and yet water flowing over time cuts a big channel, albeit you think of it as being softer, weaker. It can create a cut through a mountain. It can cut through, in fact, in engineering, we use water to cut through steel. So water can be very powerful if we want it to be. It also can be very soft. It can be nurturing. So Qigong teaches transformation through alignment rather than struggle. So the next path I'd like to touch on is the Christian transformation. So becoming a new creation. In Christianity, transformation is rooted in the relationship with God. The Apostle Paul writes of being transformed through the renewing of the mind. And he describes a moment from the old self to a renewed self. So that includes conversion, repentance, grace, sanctification, resurrection. So transformation is not self-improvement alone, but participation in divine life. Some of you might have recognized some of these things I've just said. Repentance of sin is quite a big theme, and that's a mental state, and it creates a transformation within ourselves, and especially with Christian belief. So the Christian journey resembles alchemy in that respect. So fear becomes trust, guilt becomes forgiveness, suffering becomes compassion, and death becomes resurrection. So the goal is like a Christ-like character. Like the work I do with Qigong, it takes practice and discipline, though the theological foundations may differ. the next on this list is the Buddhist transformation. So from suffering to awakening. So Buddhism begins with the recognition that suffering is part of life. And so from that comes the Four Noble Truths. The fact that there is suffering and there is a cause of suffering. There is an end to suffering and there is a path to the end of suffering. So there's four noble truths in which you can follow, which help you eventually overcome. And from that came the Eightfold Path, with the right view, the right intention, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right effort, the right mindfulness, and the right concentration. So these are the 8 ways in which the Buddhists believe can bring about this transformation. When you think of it that way, it seems obvious, but if you focus intention on something, it gives you a goal in which to create your mind, or let your mind resolve some of these inner issues that we quite often carry about with us from day to day in our lives. So the transformation comes not by escaping reality, but by seeing it clearly. Siddhartha Gautama taught that awareness, or Buddha should I say, taught that awareness transforms our relationship with suffering. So it's not a case of, we suffer and we just forget about it, or we put a wall up and ignore it. In this path, it's all about acknowledging it and addressing it head on. So Buddhism offers a profound understanding of emotional transformation. So again, anger can become clarity, fear can become wisdom, and attachment can become freedom. So something I tried quite a bit with different meditation techniques. So this is another reason why I'm talking about these today, because I went a little bit deeper as I learned more about the different techniques. The next one is Hindu transformation and discovering the divine self. In Hindu traditions, transformation often involves recognizing that the true self, the Atman, is already connected to ultimate reality, which is the Brahman. A spiritual journey is one of remembering rather than acquiring. Quite often we're intent with learning something, acquiring something so that we can use it, when the idea is it's always there and all we have to do is uncover this deeper sense of knowing. I like that philosophy, I like that idea that everything is already within us and all we have to do is just dig deeper and uncover that truth, and we get the answer to what we need to do in any given moment or for life itself. So of course the Hindu practice includes yoga, meditation, devotion, and selfless acts or action. The many Hindu stories portray transformation. Krishna teaches that inner transformation occurs through discipline, action without attachment to results. So this is echoed in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is on the battlefield and he has a breakdown like, what am I doing? And so Krishna says, get up. Everybody's expecting you to fight, so fight. And he goes, I can't. And so there's a full discourse on this breakdown and why he's having second thoughts about all his family and friends are on one side and on the other side, and they're all fighting each other. And he's thinking, why is this happening? And through that is a total transformation, a learning, a deeper learning that from himself as this interplay from Krishna to Arjuna. This also resonates with the Taoist philosophy the emphasis is on practice rather than striving. So Arjun could have just kept doing what was expected of him, but he decided to question that. But there's still expectations which he carries out. So he didn't strive to meet them. He questioned it and let his inner judgment, his inner body tell him, hang on a minute, there's something I need to question here. And so he went with that, and from that became a full revelation. I don't know if anybody's read the Bhagavad Gita, but it's an interesting, it's just a small part of a much bigger scripture. So the Islamic transformation, purification of the heart, is next. So in Islam, transformation is often described as purification. The aim is refinement of character and surrender to God. So this is why you have the 5 pillars. You have a declaration of faith as the first pillar, prayer, giving, fasting. I don't know about Ramadan, fasting, and pilgrimage to Mecca, which is supposed to be done at least once in your lifetime. That's the idea. So you have these 5 pillars which gives them focus to create this inner transformation. The transformation is particularly so with Islamic mysticism or Sufism. The heart becomes a laboratory of transformation. Now, I could have looked up many wonderful poems like from Rumi and such, which give you wonderful ideas of how life works and the inner workings of our being. So if you ever get the chance, I would look that up. Some wonderful ways of looking at life. So the alchemical themes here, the ego is refined, pride becomes humility, separation becomes union, and self-centeredness becomes service. So many contemplative traditions recognize that true change begins inwardly before it appears outwardly. So you get that with Islam as well as any other faith or religion. So there's an emotional alchemy, transforming the inner landscape, and this is what we've been talking about. So modern psychology increasingly confirms what spiritual traditions have taught for centuries. Emotions are forms of energy and information. Just like, as I say, somebody come into the room, it transmits, and you know the type of mood that person's in. Transformation does not occur through denial. You have to hit it head on straight away. It occurs fully through awareness. So we have to build in, and look at everything that's going on within us before we can create this transformation. So many difficult emotions contain hidden gifts, such as fear can become courage, anger creates healthy boundaries, grief can turn into compassion, shame into self-understanding, anxiety into presence, and loss can transform into wisdom. If you let it, there's always a hidden side, there's like a yin and the yang, and there's always something wonderful to learn if you let it, instead of it taking over you on the inside. So ask yourself, what emotion in your life is waiting to be transformed rather than avoided? We all have something in there if we look. And what I found is it's worth just digging deep and just acknowledging that, if nothing else. So in traditional Chinese medicine, emotions are linked to energetic patterns. And so how we feel affects all the different internal organs. And so you can equate to that, anxiety, you can get an upset stomach. There's a relationship. And through many centuries of Chinese medicine, they mapped that. So they're quite good at doing that for the Chinese. Something that interests me quite a bit at the moment. I've not mastered it yet, but it's interesting. So practices such as breathwork and mindful movement can help restore balance, as I said before, and that's why I practice this now. There's a whole science behind breathing techniques, and there's, I don't know, some of you might know the Wim Hof method. You breathe quite sharpishly, and it's you get too much oxygen in the system, and then you control that. There's other methods such as sports, athletic sports people use, where you have this interchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. If you breathe in too much oxygen, you haven't got that carbon dioxide within, but you need it for that transformation to go deeper into the tissues. So the idea is you run with your mouth closed and you breathe through your nose, and that creates a level of carbon dioxide, and it has a reaction within which then allows the oxygen to get to the blood supply and into the organs. And so it cuts off microseconds into these athletes, but every microsecond helps win and creates gold medals. So very important for these athletes. So physical transformation, the body as a sacred vessel. So most traditions recognize that transformation is not purely mental. So the body remembers, the body learns, and the body changes. So we do things automatically, and this is where we do things subconsciously. And so the body remembers, what it needs to do and how we feel. I remember a few years ago when I suffered from a bit of anxiety, but it's definitely stress, and I was trying different techniques in which how to resolve that. But I was very logical minded, and I think, well, I'll just tell myself not to be stressed. I thought it was as simple as that. What have I got to be stressed about? So I logically said, well, this situation is not stressful because, and I would give it many reasons. But the body goes, no, I'm gonna manifest all your stressful responses right now. And I just couldn't understand, why you couldn't logically tell your body to, tell it not to be stressed. Yeah, that was a bit of a transformational moment. Yeah, so I had to go deeper and really get the subconscious mind to learn that there is ways of not being stressed, and then the body remembers and it does it automatically. So that was my experience of it. So examples include, if you go along the spiritual religious traditions, there's fasting. So a Christian might fast. A Buddhist might have meditation postures. A Hindu person might use yoga. An Islamic person might use prayer and movements. And of course, the Taoists use Qigong. So each tradition understands that physical practices influences consciousness. I don't know if you've ever pieced all that together, but it's a transformational thought process that I went through, which helped me in long term, and which I still use a lot of these things today. So with that, we'll go into our next song for a break, and this is again in the green books, number 3. We sing the joy of living. So, self-doubt, denial, fear, unworthiness, shyness, inexperience, anxiety were all things that stopped me from being the person I truly felt inside at one point. Now I freely engage about the real me, the one that people sees, not the one buried deep inside, desperate to come out to the surface. It took using all the tools to overcome the inner critic, and a lot of the tools I've mentioned already. But it was a transformation which I decided was going to happen. And with that came a physical manifestation of who I am today. So it can be done, and it takes commitment and awareness to go deeper, to know yourself truly, and to be willing to do that. But there's nothing stopping us for those who really seek that inner transformation, that alchemy of being somebody who you want to be. You can put in that melting pot whatever you like, be whoever you like or who you like, if you're just willing to do that. So the universal pattern of transformation across faiths and philosophies, a surprisingly similar pattern appears. A recognition that something must change. Humanity sees this, but finds it hard to know how to approach it quite often. So there's a period of practice or discipline, encountering resistance and challenge. Gradual refinement over time, and that's what it takes. Not all at once, but just little by little. So feel happy on the inside and we manifest happiness. We are the melting pot where the alchemy happens. Emergence of a transformed self. Sometimes this is temporary, but sometimes this is more permanent. And I suppose sometimes that's what we seek. A better you, a better us. So the alchemists search for gold, yet happens, perhaps their greatest discovery was that transformation itself is a treasure. So whether through prayer, meditation, qigong, service, contemplation, or worship, human beings share a common longing to become more fully aware, and it is something we should encourage, especially with the younger generation who have their whole lives ahead of them. And they may need these tools to overcome the inner alchemical process of our emotions that we encounter from day to day. So we're going to our last hymn or song, which is in the Purple Books, number 33, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. So we come to the end of the service. If somebody would like to just switch off the chalice light. The alchemy of transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about uncovering what has always been waiting within us. Across faiths, cultures, and practices, the invitation is the same: to transform fear into courage, division into harmony, and mere existence into a life of deeper awareness, compassion, and purpose. The goal is not at the end of the journey, it is revealed through the journey itself.
That's silenced everyone.